This is Boxing Tickets, and in association with that prize guy. I'm delighted to be joined. I haven't spoke to you, Jason, in quite a while. Obviously, I had you in a couple of cameo appearances, obviously, and interviews on Saturday night, but obviously, we'd sort of planned on Saturday before them interviews that we were sort of going to have a sort of chat today, obviously, on all things. I guess probably a busy weekend for yourself, obviously. Managing fighters, commentary, obviously in Scotland. Obviously, you had the hot dog, obviously winning the British Boxing World Celtic title in Scotland Saturday night. Busy weekend for you.
Yeah, it was probably one of the busiest weekends I've had as a manager so far. But it was great. It was great performances by the lads, good excitement. And at the end of the day, the lads they're continuing to put in performances, they're continuing to get the victories, and that's what this game's all about.
Just before, obviously, I sort of touch on a sort of a plan I sort of have. I want to go back to obviously November. Obviously, we're 7 months on now. You probably recovered from obviously everything, but you obviously done Everest. Like when you probably thought of it at the start, you were going, you know what, this will be easy. Like how tough was obviously Everest?
Yeah, it was tough. It was actually in March time that I did that. It was the very start of March, and it ended up just towards the end of March. It was like 3 full weeks during March that we were away in total, and yeah, it was an experience. It was something that never really crossed my mind to do before. Like you've always heard about Everest and climbing, especially here in Donegal. You have Jason Black who climbed Everest, I think a couple of times now at this stage. Um, but like going out climbing mountains and hiking, yes, I love the scenery and yes, I love going for a walk or something, but the hiking and climbing mountains just wouldn't be up my street. But it was a woman here in the town, Anne-Marie McGeehan, who works closely with the Blue Stack Foundation, and I've worked with the Blue Stack Foundation as well closely last number of years. And she asked me to do it because it was all raising funds for the Blue Stack. And the people are absolutely incredible in the Blue Stack. I can't come to words how much they've impacted me, and the people there as well that are putting in the work, like the workers, everybody that's helping out there and getting the funds in, and being there on a day-to-day basis. Like it's a massive team effort. And once I heard it was for that and they wanted me to help to raise the awareness leading into it, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I started to look up what it was all about, and I actually got pretty excited then. Like the journey on the way up, it's something else, like it really, really is. And to be honest, it was something that I never expected I would ever do. I absolutely loved every single minute of it. Would I go and do it again? Absolutely not. But if anybody asked me, Jason, what, like, I'm thinking of doing this, I'd be like, 100% do it. It's a life-changing experience, without a doubt, Stephen. 100%.
For anybody obviously doesn't know obviously what Blue Stack is and what they do, can you obviously just explain that? Because obviously I guess for you, you know fine well what they do, but maybe I guess in some ways, awareness for obviously what Blue Stack do. Can you tell us what Blue Stack do and obviously what the funds would have been for?
Yeah, so like it's it's a foundation that is for, I just want to make sure I get this right. Do you know what I mean? Because you have to be very careful in the way that you word these things sometimes. But it's um it's for people with like the likes of Down syndrome, autism, things like that there, that gives families respite. You know what I mean? Gives families the help that they need during the day, during the week, at the weekends, to really, and it brings them all together in an environment where they can have fun, where they can laugh, where they can play games, whether it may be like they've sensory rooms and everything in the Blue Stack Foundation in Donegal town. They have a beautiful park out the back of the house. They have a coffee shop in there now that you can go and buy a coffee. All proceeds go to the Blue Stack Foundation. They take them away on day trips. They help them with their communication with people, their ability to communicate. Do you know what I mean? And to to live life to the fullest, I think is the best way to describe it. It gives these people the opportunity to live their life to the fullest. And it's absolutely heartwarming every time you go up there. And that's what the funds is for, is to continue, being able to get the special treatment in the special rooms that they need to help them through life, and set up the environment where they can express themselves. They're starting to do podcasts up there. It is absolutely fantastic, and that's where all the funds go to. It is an absolute breath of fresh air up there, and every time you go up, I come away smiling for 2 or 3 days after. Like, it is absolutely fantastic.
You can hear obviously the passion for what you're describing it as there, and particularly when you're doing something like Everest and it's so challenging physically and mentally and everything else. Like you need to have that sort of passion. Like if you went up there and you were just doing it, raising funds for your local window cleaner, you would have give up after 2 days. But you know that from what you were doing, so it's going to help make a difference for the families and for everybody else. Like that drove you on, and times were tough in Everest.
Yeah, and we were getting updates from everybody back in the Blue Stack. They were sending on videos, and there's definitely a few tears shedded on the journey up there as well from some of the videos and the encouragement that we were getting from everybody back there in the foundation. And as you said, like I was sitting down in the podcast with them. I don't know, was it before or after, but they were like, why are you doing this? Like, well, what's your reason or purpose to do this? And I was so close to breaking down, like, because I was like, "You're so the reason," and I said that to him. I goes, "Like, you're the reason I'm doing this," and they were just the way that they were like, "Oh, thanks so much, Jason." And it's just so heartwarming, like, and yeah, like they really drove you on. Like, whenever times were tight up there, people think like, "Oh, it must be so physically challenging." And I say to people, like, it's not that it was physically challenging, like, oh, yeah, sure, you're fit as a fiddle, you're young, you're healthy, everything like that. Obviously, it's not going to be that challenging, but like, there's days we were walking 6 hours a day. There was days we had to walk 9 hours a day. And it wasn't as if you were told, right, let's go, we need to get up here before 6 o'clock. Obviously, it was better if you got up there in daylight, but the first night we arrived, we were late getting into Lukla. We were late getting in there from Kathmandu into Lukla. It took us 3 days before flights were leaving the airport because the weather was so bad. And when we got there, we just had to hit the ground running right away to start catching up on time, and we were going in late through the night with the head torches on, and that was our first day. Like, the first day was heavy, because we were obviously stuck in Kathmandu for 3 days, and we were probably in the Irish bar a little bit too much before we set off. People were actually thinking that we had come back from doing Everest Base Camp instead of just getting ready to go. But it definitely is challenging, but in terms of physically, it's just the slower you go, the better. So there was a Sherpa up there that actually described it to me. He says, slow, slow is the medicine of the mountain, which means like the slower you go, the better you'll go getting up to the top. And that was the way. And everyone says the fittest people always struggle the most. And it's not that they're the fittest, it's just the mindset. They were that fit and they were flying on in front of everybody. They're like, oh, let's keep going. Let's get up here. I want to get up here first. I want to be the fastest up. Those are the people that struggled, because each day as you went up the altitude, it hit people in so many ways. There's actually two people in our group that didn't make it up to base camp because of altitude sickness. They had to be helicoptered back down. You'll never die going to Everest Base Camp if you listen to the signs. There has been a few people that lost their lives on the way up the base camp, but that's because they haven't listened to the signs. They tried to, ignore them and just keep going and plowing through it. But if you listen to the signs, take the breaks that you need, get the right nutrition into you, try and get as much sleep as you can, do all the simple things right. It's very, very achievable.
Very, very, like, I guess when people started listening to this, we started going, "Oh, I want to go and do Everest now," but it's not for everybody. Away from sort of that, like, I remember speaking to you probably nearly about this time last year, obviously, and ahead of the Queensbury card in Belfast, and you'd sort of mentioned to me I'm going to have quite a few signings coming. And sometimes when people say, "Ugh, he's on the wind up," but you sort of delivered. I guess you didn't say it anywhere online for sort of people to go, "Ah, he's right." But you said to me, "I'm going to have quite a few signings coming," and you have like you've now six fighters in the stable. At that time you would have had, well, you would
Two
obviously
or
have
three.
had
Yeah.
cathal, I think, already signed at that stage. You already had James, who obviously was fighting the Queensway card. Like, what a transformation in 12 months from sort of like one fighter and another one about to make their debut to now having six.
Yeah, obviously this is something that I've only really started putting my everything into is last year or two. Um, and I'm selective with the fighters that I sign. Um, I need to believe in the fighters. I'm not just here to have a number of fighters that just to get them out and get them fighting and say, look, I'm managing all these fighters. Like everybody that I sign has a certain quality, has a certain something about them that I believe in and that I feel like I can work with. Yes, talent is very, very important, and you know that is probably one of the key things that you look for in fighters. But there's different qualities that I look for in fighters as well. Like it's just not going to be talent that's going to make me want to sign a fighter or is going to make me want to work with a fighter. They have to have a certain they have to have certain qualities about them that I feel like I can work with them and that they can work with me, because it's not just about gathering up a number of fighters and getting them fights. It's about believing in the fighters, them believing in you, and working as a team. And there's been fighters that have looked for me to manage them, and I just not the right fit. It's nothing to the fighter. It's more so I don't think I can give them my 100%, or I don't think that it's the right fit, and I think that they'll be better elsewhere. It's not anything to do with the fighters. I just really want. I want the best. Like I want to be working with the best, and I want to create the best. So every fighter that I sign, I have a belief in them. They have a quality about them that I believe in, and that I really want to take to the top of the game. So look, it's a long journey. Professional boxing is a tough, tough game, and starting a fighter out from their pro debut and carrying them all the way potentially to world titles is it's a long, long process, and there's full of highs, there's full of lows. So look, I'll definitely be signing more fighters in the near future. I'm just waiting to see and to feel that right fit and that right character about the person to go to that next level.
It's like the Dragon's Den, isn't it? Really, in a way, like obviously when people go in the Dragon's Den, they're sitting in front of multi-millionaires, and somebody's maybe only looking for 50 grand, but they're going, yeah, but they're looking for more than the 50
Mm.
grand. They're looking at the person, they're looking at what they could do elsewhere. That's what you're doing. Similar, like someone could be a 57-time Irish champion, but they might not tick all the other wee boxes for you, and you go, I just can't work with you.
Exactly, and this isn't like it's not oh, I'm only going to work with the best, or I'm only going to work like there. There's no ego, or there's no nothing here. Like it's I just have a standard, and I just have a a level that I want to work with, and that I believe that I can bring to the next level and bring to the top. And that's what I want to do. Like I want to work with fighters with good character, good personality, and just have that something about them. And I believe that the fighters that I have right now, each and every single one of them have a great character about them. They have something that I really like in them. And you can't guarantee that all of them's going to be world champions. You can't guarantee them that they're all going to be undefeated over the next 5, 6 years. But what I can guarantee is it's going to be a great journey. It's going to be a fun journey, and it's going to be enjoyable to work together and to go through this journey together, have fun doing it, kick ass while we're doing it, and for the fighters making a shitload of money in this game as well.
which is the most important part nowadays. Like people sometimes, and I know there's people that's turned pro and then have never sort of fought because they don't understand the logistics of the sport. You have to be able to sell tickets. You have to get sponsorship. They don't understand all them wee things, and they're the most crucial part sometimes. Like I'm not naming any fighters in particular, but some fighters live on Instagram and fighters have been buying followers and things like that. And you're going, like, that's not going to do you any good when it comes to selling tickets, so you have to get out
No,
there, you have to get yourself into the public eye.
it's the way boxing is right now, Stephen. A fighter's name pops up. What's the first thing you do? You probably look at him on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? You go on, obviously, to get a look at a few videos or go on YouTube, see their recent fights, their box rec. But one thing is you look at as well is you look at the following that they have, you look at the engagement that they have, you look at their personality. Like that's the difference of professional boxing and amateur boxing. Talent will bring you to the top in amateur boxing, whereas talent might get you nowhere in professional boxing. And that can be, it can be the shit side of professional boxing, or it can be the good side of it. It all depends on what you look at and the way that you work it. And anybody that turns professional, they need to understand that this is a business, and you got to market yourself well. You got to get yourself out there, and let people see who the fighter is behind the camera as well. See who the fighter is behind the gym, behind the fights. Let people have an attachment to you in some way that they can follow you and travel to your fights and go along the journey with you.
I'm going to ask a similar question to you that asked Paddy McCrory, and it's not about fighting. You've obviously you've been you've been a fighter or still a fighter. You've been a manager. You've been a promoter. Like when you look back at use it as a football analogy. You did football manager game, and it was out there, and people used to look at it and they play the game and think it was easy. Like when you look back at like your professional career now, do you sort of look back and go, I didn't understand that this had to be done or this had to be done. Like, would you like to reverse time and sort of nearly in some ways start your career again with the knowledge that you have now?
Um, I don't know if I like to go back and change things and change the noise. Sometimes the things you don't know is good in a way as well. Sometimes, um, I think that to be a professional boxer, you need to be selfish and you need to put yourself first. And that's what a lot of fighters do. And I believe that they're right to. In management, you got to play the ball a little bit. Do you know what I mean? You have to be a little bit more flexible as a manager. It took me a while to get out of that just one way mindset. When I got into the management, it was kind of just this is the way to do it, and that's the way that I'm doing it. Whereas you got to learn to adapt to things, and you got to learn to. It's not all about you no more. And I'm not saying that in a cocky way or anything, but when I was fighting, it was just all about me. I didn't really give a shit about anybody else, and I think I was right to do that because nobody else is getting into the ring and fighting for me. Sometimes I think I did care about other people probably too much at times in my career instead of just putting myself first um, more often. But I believe that's the mindset that you need as a fighter. Like you gotta put yourself first. You gotta have that chip on your shoulder. You gotta have that wee bit about you to get to the top. And as a manager, you gotta learn to be flexible. You gotta learn to be able to talk to everybody, to have a relationship. Boxing's a very small circle, and you gotta keep people close, and you gotta be able to work with people. You can't let your ego get in the way. You can't get somebody not giving you a fight on a card. You can't be like, oh, fuck them. They're not giving one of my fighters a go. Like, it's a small circle. It keeps coming round and round. There's going to be a time they need me. There's going to be a time I need them. And that's the way management goes, and promotions, like it's about getting the right fighters on the right cards in the right venue in the right location and the right opponents. And you got to be adaptable, and you got to get into this game. Look, I'm fresh into this game. I'm not saying that I know everything. I'm very fresh in this game. There's so much learning to do and so much growing to do in this game, but I'm hungry to be a successful manager, to be one of the best managers out there, and to bring my fighters to the top and to give my fighters the best opportunity that they can get in this game of boxing. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, Stephen.
It's one of them that sometimes like do you nearly wish sometimes like we see so many fallouts, you probably look more at America with a lot of fallouts with between fighters and promoters and things like that. Do you nearly wish sometimes there was like a some sort of course that fighters could do to understand the game whilst they're doing it rather than just in their own thing? Because we're seeing like fighters are falling out with Eddie Hearn, who's probably one of the very best to do it, looking somewhere else because someone's in their ear saying you can do this or you can get this. Do you really wish sometimes it's more transparent in the sport that the fighters know the process of what actually happens?
Yeah, I think it's just a learning phase, and I think you see a lot of true character from people as well. Boxing can bring the nicest to the nice people in the game, but they can also bring not so nice people into this game, and you get to see some people's true colors through time, and it might be a kick in the teeth at the time, but sometimes it's going to save you a lot of headaches down the line. But fighters need to understand that no matter how friendly you get with a manager, with promoters or anything like that, you know, if it didn't make sense for them, if it wasn't financially working out, yes, there is people that create a great bond, a great relationship, and no matter if things are going great or not great, then they'll continue and it'll work well. I was very lucky in my career that that has happened to me, but you know, I think majority of it is that it's business at the end of the day. And the manager's job is to go out there to get fights, to get as much money for the fighter as possible, to make sure that everything sways in their favor as much as possible, as get as much positive stuff for your fighter leading into fight week, get as much as that fighter deserves leading into the fight. And that's the manager's job, and the boxer's job is to get in there and perform. And if someone isn't doing their job, that's when the issues come. And yes, you're saying too about other people getting in fighters' ears and things like that, and that's the name of this game. It can be very dirty sometimes, but you need to get with somebody that you trust, and if you trust somebody well enough and the relationship's working well enough, doesn't matter what people are going to say in your ear, you're going to stick by them and you're going to give them absolutely everything you got. And there's a lot of people listen to these stories and listen to these rumors of, oh, come with me, I'll get you X amount of money. They end up going with them and they end up don't getting as much as what they were getting before. And it's a tough game to it's difficult on young fighters, getting into this game because you really need to get into the hands of somebody that can guide you well and that has a genuine reason to guide you well, other than just financially. Um, and that's just the name of the game.
Three of your new stars in particular. I've obviously I've spoke to Rhys and obviously I spoke to Kian and I think I'm doing obviously Daniel's interview tomorrow night. But on them two in particular, they're not boxing a long time, and I think Daniel's is similar as well. So like you don't have to be at this fight game 15 years as an amateur to turn pro, as you're saying there. You see that certain qualities, and with them three in particular, it's obviously joined the stable. It's proof of the fact that you don't need to be a very well accomplished amateur boxer that fought in the Olympics, fought the Commonwealth Games, things like that. You're having a nice mix between everybody.
Yeah, I think whenever the computer scoring system was around, I think it really damaged fighters that were looking to go professional because it was a very particular way of boxing. It was tit for tat. It was just touching your opponent and getting out of there. And professional boxing is the absolute opposite. It's about hitting your opponent and hurting them and taking them out of there. And I think a lot of fighters struggled to make that transition, whereas now the professional and amateur boxing is a little bit similar. The scoring system's a little bit similar. The styles are a little bit similar, but it's still only over 3 rounds. It's a sprint. Like amateur boxing is a sprint. professional boxing is a marathon, and that's where you need to find that balance. I see so many amateurs turning pro, and they get in there, they're out of the out of the corner like a rocket, and they're absolutely flying the first three, four, even maybe 5 rounds, but you start to then see the dip later on in the fight. And that's where I think amateur boxers going professional can really look at. It's about easing your way into a fight. It's about, laying traps early on the fight, a few feints, see what your opponent's doing, see when he's dropping his hands, see like it's scanning your opponent. Like you really have to scan your opponent in those first couple of rounds, but also take control of the fight as well. Like you can't let your opponent just come in and walk over you for 4 rounds while you look at what he's doing. So there's a very fine balance there. But what you're saying with Rhys there, I think Rhys is a phenomenal talent, doesn't have a lot of tread on the tires. And I think that's very important going into the professional game because the sparring, the rounds, the fights are all a little bit tougher than amateur boxing. So these guys are fresh into the boxing game, they're fresh into the professional game, and they can have a very long career. Whereas Reese here, I love his style, boxes absolutely beautiful, picks his shots very nice, can put his hands together, body and head. And outside the ring, good kid. There's that wee bit of grit. There's that wee bit of something about him that really took my fancy. And I love the way that he went to the national elites, cleaned up there. Didn't have to go to the Ulster elites. It was dangerous territory getting in there, coming from the Ulster or the Irish elites, Ulster elites, the possibility then of getting beat. He stated his place, number one in Ireland. Had the box the likes of Dylan Eglinson, a big name in Irish boxing. Beat him, beat many other ones on the way. And that's what I really liked about him. There was no fear, there was no trying to hold his title and continue his name on to be just the Irish champion. Like he wanted it all. And went to the Stranja Cup then out in where was the Stranja Cup?
Bulgaria, was it?
I think so, yeah, Bulgaria. So he was out there with that and boxed. I think it was the Kazakh or Uzbek that was the world silver medalist. Went in there, put up an amazing fight, gave him absolute hell, and potentially could have won that fight. And then the other Irish fighter got beat a little bit more convincingly by the Uzbek, and I think got a count and everything. So Reese very much so stated his name in Irish boxing, and he just wasn't a fan of amateur boxing, loved professional boxing, wanted to go over with a good few conversations, good few meetups, and yeah, we made the decision then that it was time for him to go pro, and he was all for it and wanted to do it. And yeah, myself and Jamie sat down and put a plan together for him and worked together with him now. And yeah, it's exciting times for Reese, and then you've the likes of Kian who doesn't have a lot of wear on the tires either, is a phenomenal talent, very hungry, very dedicated, good fella outside the ring as well. Has got that grit in him inside the ring too, which is a must. And he's up sparring the likes of Joseph Parker, Ben Whitaker, Hamzah sheeraz now at the minute, and giving these guys all they want. He's got a massive future in this sport. And then we have big Daniel Fakoyede, who can be a next Irish heavyweight star, I believe. Doesn't have a lot of wear on the tires either. Is still learning a lot on the job. But I think that he has that hunger and that desire that he can really progress and really make leaps now over the next couple of years and do some great things in the world of professional boxing.
The only obviously fighter that we haven't spoke about obviously in the last couple of days, obviously with Danny and obviously cathal. Anybody watching their interviews will obviously see your sort of take from them. James
Yeah.
McGivern, obviously he had the big knockout nearly a year ago on the Queensbury card. He's fought obviously then in Liverpool since. I know he was supposed to fight on the card at the weekend in Glasgow, but then I think it didn't work out with dates with travel and things. What's going on
Yeah.
with James at the moment?
Yeah, there was talk about an August 2nd fight, Queensbury. It was potentially meant to be on that. So James is just weighing a few things up now at the minute and seeing what's happening. Be talking with James over and back. Look, James is a phenomenal talent. Um, I think he's one of, they don't call him the natural for nothing. You know, he's a phenomenal talent, so he is, and can punch. He's proven that in the past now. So yeah, it's just a matter of time now. Do we see what's next for James?
Who's the better golfer to use to? I think I've asked you both similar questions. Now, if I've asked you on camera, you can't turn away from it. Who's the better golfer?
Just go by expressions the next time that you ask him. I'm not going to comment on it. Just ask James who the best golfer is, and you'll see. There'll be signs. There'll be signs.
He'll watch this part and he'll message me straight away and say that he can't believe I'm doubting him. Finally, obviously, I don't want to really want to touch on your own career because you'll obviously make your own mind up and things. Like 2 years ago today is the last time you've actually had to make weight for a fight. You know, it's crazy how time can fly. But
And I still look in shape.
still looking shape. You wouldn't think you're a fighter. Obviously your opponent then, Berlanga is obviously fighting. Andy Lee was obviously your trainer. Andy Lee's now training sheeraz, who's training Berlanga. Have you been passing any tips on to Hamzah in the lead up to the fight? Like, I guess obviously with Andy there, Andy's there, he's the expert and everything else. But have you been passing on any tips to him? Because I guess like Berlanga tried to get in your head. I remember when you've done the early fight week stuff, he was sort of going like, "I run this place," sort of thing, and you're going, "What are you on about?" You know, like he just tries to get into your head mentally. Have you been passing anything on to Hamzah?
Hamza's a great fighter. He's got a great team in his corner with Andy. You know, myself and Andy came up with a great game plan and worked for the majority of the fight against Berlanga. Knockdowns kind of stole it for me in that fight, I believe. But they've got a great game plan. Hamza's a big man for super middleweight. Like height wise, the width of his shoulders, he's got a long reach and he can punch. Um, you know, Hamza is Hamza can definitely get the job done against Berlanga, I believe. He's got all the capabilities. Yes, I've been up in the gym a few times. We've spoke once or twice about little things and Berlanga and just little small things, but I'm very confident in Hamza. I'm very confident in Andy. I believe they're a solid team together. I see them up there working in the gym. I've been up a couple of times now, and you know, there's something there's something boiling there. I can see it and I can feel it up there, and I believe that Hamza's going to get in there. I think he's going to have a really enjoyable performance. Um, Berlanga is a tough, tough operator. People don't give him credit for his boxing ability. People think, they call him the monster, 16 knockouts, all first rounds consecutively. He kind of created this aura about him as a fighter, and I think he kind of believes that himself a little bit too sometimes, and it can be his downfall. But I believe that I believe that Berlanga's boxing ability is a lot better, and Hamza's well aware of that. Hamza's a smart man, so he has a good boxing brain as well. And yeah, I'm excited for this fight. I really am excited for this fight, and I believe that Hamza can get in there and I want to say upset the apple cart because everybody's going to be like, "Oh, Berlanga just fought Canelo, give him a decent fight," and Hamza drew in his last fight. Like, this is the perfect way to come into this fight because Berlanga thinks he's up here after going the distance with Canelo. Everybody thinks Hamza's down here now because he drew in his last fight and maybe wasn't as impressive as people expected. But Hamza has a point to prove here as well, and it's a great opportunity for both fighters because you know a win here is vital for both of them. Um, a win here will take the winner to the next level, whereas a defeat here can be damaging on the career. But yeah, Hamza's in great nick so far. Cam's been going really well with them. Andy in the corner, super game plan, and yeah, I'm excited for it.
Just looking here with 90 seconds left. So I'm just going to ask you one final question. You've promoted one show in Letterkenny. are we going to see you doing any promotion of any other shows? You know, is there any you want to get back in the promotional market as well, or are you just happy at this stage at the minute managing?
Yeah, definitely going to be back into the promotional market. Talking to a few people now at the minute where we're kind of putting a few things in place. There definitely will be another show coming. Would love to get another one back in Donegal. So that's the aim, that's the goal, and I'm really excited to get that ball rolling again and getting the fighters out there and making waves as well in the promoting side of it and building Irish boxing is most importantly, building the fighters where they have a platform where they have an opportunity to fight in their home country. And just I know we might have only 90 seconds left, but I want to just mention Tyler Jolly, who had a fantastic victory there at the weekend as well, beating formerly never stopped. Jake Tinklin, Welsh warrior, I like to call him because he's as hard as nails. Tyler put in a great fight there and blew him out of there in the ninth round with a phenomenal stoppage. So he's now the British Boxing Board of Control Celtic welterweight champion. He's in the British rankings and everything now, and Tyler's in a good trajectory now in his career.
Well, listen, I know we have about 7 seconds left, so thank you very much for coming on and having a chat with me, and I'll catch up with you very
Lovely.
soon,
Thanks
Jason.
for having me.
Cheers,
Lovely.
Jason.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
lad.